Welcome everyone to how to learn more about your members and turn it into engagement. I am Brianne Wheeler. I'm the Director of Marketing for PropFuel, which, if you're not familiar, is an email and SMS platform that is designed to engage your members in a way differently from how you're already doing it. So thank you again for joining me today. And I think we're going to have some great content today. I'm excited to share it. And really conversation, not just content, but so I lead the marketing team here, and I have for 3 years. And before this, I like to mention that I was a marketing and communications director at an association management company for about 10 years. And I also worked for the Texas Medical Association. So I've been doing association marketing for most of my career. And now I'm on the software side, but I come to you with kind of the mindset of where you're probably at right now, which is very member focused and trying to get really better engagement by being kind of on the human level with your members and making sure that they're happy. And I speak regularly on marketing topics like this one for associations. I spoke at ASIE Annual last year. I've spoken at Digital Now a couple of times over the years. And often on webinars like this one and UST, and I'm kind of everywhere with just presenting content and some thought leadership. So I want to go over first what we're covering today. First, we're going to break down the different types of association data and why that's really important, why it matters when it comes to long-term member engagement. Second, we're going to talk a little bit about how data becomes stale over time and ways to keep it current so that you can utilize it in really empowering ways. And then also kind of learning how to build the process of updating data regularly. So sometimes I think we think of it in terms of being like some kind of static activity that is, for example, a survey or at the time of a membership renewal or joining. There are all these kind of static moments, but we don't think of data collection and updating in an ongoing, more fluid way. So I want to introduce a way of doing that today. And there are a couple different ways that you can do it, really. So first, I want to hand it over to you. What is your biggest member profile data challenge right now? So if you think about maybe some campaigns you're running, or even just knowledge that you don't have that would be helpful for you to have, I'd love for you to enter it in the chat. What is it that you maybe don't know right now that you would like to know about your members that would be useful to you in better engaging them? And the example that I love to use is really around conferences. So in like intent. So a lot of the time when we're having an event, we just have no idea, if anybody intends to come or how many people are going to come. And so I love those intent questions because it helps you plan actually and gives you an idea of how interested people are. And sometimes we don't think to ask those questions. We're really looking at just sending things out and hoping that it sticks and hoping that people take the call to action that you give them. So, okay, Jeffrey, you said activity of services. Can you elaborate on that a little bit? And even, in the chat, if you can type it out. I don't know if you can come off of mute. If you can, go ahead. I may be able to get you off of mute here. Let me see. No, I don't think so. But if there's any way to elaborate on that, I would love to hear what you're thinking on that note. Anybody else as it relates to profile data? Like, are there any question marks for you? What is really kind of like a question mark for you, or there's just like you're like a blind spot almost? Retirement info, Jason, that's awesome. Retirement info is very important because unless we ask people when they're retiring or if they are retired, we're not going to know. And so we keep serving them in a way that when they may be in their, a different stage of their career. And we need that information. That's awesome. Okay, Jeffrey. So what services are top of mind? Information, products, event. Okay, so like what's most important really? What's to prioritize as far as their member benefits? I love that. Jenna, having to log in. Yes. Okay, I love that you mentioned that. That's the perfect setup for what we're going to talk about today. Easier ways for members to update their information and then login activity on the website. Yes, absolutely. Thank you for all your input on that. Okay, so that sets up our conversation really well. So association data, where does it come from? We have several different types of information, and this list is not exhaustive. It's just kind of the typical ones you might have in your organization. So first is more transactional data. You have whatever enrollment information that you ask for when somebody joins, right? So that's transactional in nature, because in order to get the membership, you're asking them to give you this information. It's the same thing with event registrations, with survey completions. It's transactional. You're really giving them an opportunity to give input, typically in exchange for something. Maybe not on the survey front, but sometimes there's even a cash value associated with survey completion. So those are the general transactional areas. Then you have this more behavioral area, which is all the things that you observe more indirectly. It could be a click-through or an open on an email. It could be a website visit, a resource download, some other type of interaction on communication channel like social media. If somebody has a chat that they submit to you in the DMs, or also maybe just on one of your posts, that's some data for you there. And then somewhat, webinar participation, just what are they doing on a day-to-day basis? Are they participating on social? So these are behaviors, and I would say that these are important, but in my opinion, as a marketer, they're sometimes still leave question marks. And so you have to kind of find out more, which we'll talk about in a moment. And then just in terms of the types of data, you have demographic data. You have the things that your members tell you about themselves that are, just basic name, address, all the typical information that is about them, whatever you ask. And often I think that in the memberships, in the association space, is based on membership. That's where you find the most information, is what you ask for when they join. And then you also have behaviors, what we observe, and then the derived data is something that we create from the first two. So you can say, okay, this person has been in their practice for 20 years, or they have this title, for example. So that's a demographic piece of information. And then you have that they visited some page that was a webinar directed at a manager level position, right? So, okay, they're at this level, and now they're visiting a page that's tied to it. So you put them together and say, maybe this is right, the right audience for this, because we know that these people in these titles might want to have access to or attend this event. And then we have this voice of the member data, which is really what we're talking about today, which is data we find out by asking more. And that does come sometimes in the form of the demographic data, where you are collecting something in that's a transaction, but then over time, say somebody is a member for 30 years, you don't know when the last time that was updated, right? So this voice of the member data is more timely, and it's more relevant to what's happening now, and also more relevant to your curiosity, almost like what you need from them in the moment. Like, it might be really important for you to target a program based on somebody's title or other demographic information. So that's just kind of a general overview there. So I'm going to go over first, like, what we typically do with this information. When we think of personalizing the member experience, it can mean a lot of different things, but when it comes to like raw data, we typically think of it in this format of, I'm going to use it to A, segment, right? Or B, put the data into a communication to make it more personal. So the first level of this, it's really like the most basic, is just name personalization. It's like, hey, we know you. There's no other custom content in there. It's really just, we know who you are, and we're going to make it a little bit more friendly, whether it's in the subject line up here or down here in the main part of the communication. So that is, I would say, is the most basic. Then you have this next level of segmentation, which you have the name information in here, the personalization on that front. And then you're also, segmenting by list. So you said, okay, I know this person's name, and I'm sending this to all the people who I know are, attended the annual conference last year, for example. So you might also know their member type. You might also say, okay, well, we're sending out something about this keynote at the event, and we think these members, this member segment will like this content. So we're getting a little bit more specific here, right? We know a little bit more, and we're utilizing it both. We're showing them that we're utilizing it, and then we're also segmenting based on what we know about them. Then you have this next level, which is kind of content personalization. So beyond segmentation, you might use AI to determine, take that transactional and behavioral information and then say, okay, we're actually going to customize like Hill Day event. This Hill Day event right here, we're just going to give this to people who have attended before, and everybody else will get something else. And whatever I would say this typically happens in like newsletter formats. Like this is how Rasa works, right? And in part, there are friends over at Rasa. So they kind of take several pieces of data into account based on what you've done before and what they know about you, and they deliver more relevant content. So that's kind of the next level of that. You have an opportunity to customize the actual content. So what's missing? So that all sounds good, right? And it is good. It's great to get a little bit more personal every time, to utilize the data. Like the data is really the power behind the personalization. However, personalization in especially that basic format can still leave guesswork in terms of individual needs, preferences, intent, what they're looking for at the time. And so if your personalization is dependent on how much you know, then you need to find out more consistently, right? You can't ask people once a year in a big giant survey what they want and then try to deliver it 6 months later. It's not actionable. And so we need another way to get the information quickly, to make it user friendly, to not have it be such a heavy lift on the member and on you as staff, right? It's very laborious to do segmentation that's manual. And yes, we have ways to segment lists and filter and do a lot more than we used to even 5 years ago. But I have a story about my annual conference for a client that was just a huge project in terms of just being able to properly segment the list. And then even then I was thinking, well, I hope this is right. I hope these people are all still in acute care case management. And I hope these people are still, in this practice setting. So it leaves some guesswork. So we need a better way to find out more information and deliver based on that. That's not painful. So more specifically, I mentioned intent before. Will they come to the conference? Will they rejoin? Acquisition, why are they even here? This is really important for non-members. Like if 75% of your members are there for a specific toolkit, then you know that that's what you need to demonstrate and show and put in front of non-members, right? Also the perception of value. So net promoter score, if you've heard of that. So would they recommend you? Really important to know, because if they wouldn't, and they wouldn't recommend you, then there's a value issue there, right? Challenges, what are they struggling with now? I love this question because beyond what a member might say or their reason for joining when you ask them at the beginning of their membership cycle, you really need to find out throughout the year what they're struggling with so that they can deliver it. And that can not only help you engage with them better, but it can inform programs. It can, trends. You can start to see trends that are maybe in the industry that you're not observing otherwise. So really, really helpful information to know. Also, type of engagement. Do they have some kind of idea that you're not offering, right? So like, it's fine to deliver value based on your current member benefits and programs, but is there something else that they could really benefit from that could make the difference in making them a long-term member for you? And so in like, generally speaking, it's really a question of like, who are they and what are their attributes that are going to make a difference in order for you being able to serve them? So I'm going to throw it back to you. I would like to know, I'd love to see what you think about this. Like, what level, after seeing those different kind of levels of personalization, where are you at right now? Like, where are you operating? Are you doing first name personalization primarily? Are you segmenting your lists? And by the way, is that painful or not? I don't know. It's good to know that. It was when I was doing it a handful of years ago. And then, or are you doing something a little bit more sophisticated, like the content segmentation? Okay, so Jenna, you said we try to segment our list, but our AMS makes it very hard. Exactly. Perfect. Like, it seems painful because you either can't pull the data you want, or the data that you have isn't there. I mean, there's several different circumstances there. Rachel, you said you're doing some segmenting. Yeah, segmentation for me is like the start of personalization, because you're like, we know this, but we're not going to make the assumption that we know everything about you. And so I segmenting is certainly helpful based on member type or some other attribute. But that, for me, like, I think mentally for marketers and membership people for a long time, it's like segmentation was it, right? Like, that's it. Like, that's the way to get more engagement, and that's the way to deliver more relevant information and value. For me, that's where it starts, and then you can get curious from there. Okay, Sue, you said some segmenting, but data is not accurate or complete from the AMS. Yes, so exactly. Jason, first name, email personalization, and segmenting. Yeah, so a note on the first name personalization. I got to this point where I felt like everybody was doing it, and then I was like, well, is this even good anymore? Like, does it work? Does it make sense? But people just like to see their name. I really think that people just like to see, you know who I am. And of course, unless it's wrong, if you have them wrong in the database, then that's a challenge. But for the most part, it's just nice, whether it's in the subject line or if it's in the body of the email, it's just nice to see your name. And I think it does catch the eye, like, just from like a more technical perspective, I think it catches your eye to see your name. Okay. So the data gap, really, here's what we're challenged with here is the ways in which we're personalizing right now still do these basic things. They still are confirming receipt. Like, if you're sending from a broadcast system, for example, you're really saying, okay, well, I see that this person received the email, or that they opened it, or that they clicked on a link. You can sometimes, there's an email in there that you can say, hey, if you're interested in this program, send an email to this person. You can present options in the broadcast fashion, and you can, of course, share information. But there's this whole other area of data here, which is really, to me, comes down to curiosity and building trust. These are just opportunities to find out more. And this all can lie in your data. You are doing more listening than you are talking. You are seeing if somebody has the intent to do something, in which case then you know who your priority people are to call when it comes to that event or program. This whole list of activities here is really, they're just all opportunities to find out more. And so that's what we're trying to do to close the data gap, to get better engagement, and to improve member profiles to be more robust in a way that's not just accurate, but you can actually do something with it. So, and then the other part I'll say about data is it can just be overwhelming. Like, just saying, hey, you need more data is just kind of empty, because it's like, actually, sometimes I feel like I don't need more data. Like, it's overwhelming to me. I need the right data that's going to help me get into action about something. So that's kind of how I think about it, this, and try to kind of piecemeal it so that it's not overwhelming. Because if you try to do too much with it and you try to, combine too much data together, it can just be a huge project. And then by the time you get the answers you're looking for, you're past the point of needing it, or it's outdated again. So I guess starting small is my suggestion on that. So much data, right? What do you do with it, and how do you capture more of it, and how do you make it actionable? How do you do something with it? The market of one, so getting down to the engagement with a market of one, which is like, say a one-on-one communication between an association and a member. You're looking for insights and then taking action. So it's a flip of what you typically do, which is deliver information and hope that they act. You're actually starting by finding out more, getting a new piece of data, continuously discovering them, cutting down on the guesswork, and then using it to serve member needs in long term. So this is the way I kind of visually think of this. Instead of asking, what do we need to tell members, which is usually where we start. You get a message if you're on a marketing communications team. I used to get this all the time. It'd be like, we need this to go out. We need this to go out. We need that to go out. And it's like, okay, that question is really like, what do we need to tell members? We need to tell members that the annual conference registration has launched. We need to tell members this. Take that, flip it. Instead of asking that first ask, what don't we know that would be helpful? For example, if you're trying to find out what trends in the industry your membership really cares about right now, and you're going to build a webinar program on it, then instead of just building the program and saying, here, we have this, we hope, like, cross fingers, we hope that it sticks, we hope that you come. And instead of that, let's ask, like, okay, of these topics, what would be of most interest to you? And then you can build based on the majority. Or if there's a couple of topics, now what to do. And then from there, what should we ask? Which is of course, like, what's of interest to you? So it's a flip of the script of how we typically communicate, and it's a different way of engaging. And the data, the member profile, and what you know is at the core of it, because the more you know, the more you can do with it. So how to do it? I'm going to give you some examples here. So this is the Tennessee Bar Association. They had the need to find out primary area of practice, which is one of those things you might, especially for the Bar Association, you might think that they would ask this question in their membership profile when somebody joins. So it may in fact be in the AMS already. However, the challenge here is over time, I don't know how much, how often lawyers switch their practice is probably less likely than some other professions, but one might shift their primary area of practice over time. And so the information that you have in the AMS could be inaccurate. It's really important. And I don't know what they actually were using this for, but it's important to get that info updated consistently so that you can look at it for, statistical purposes and use it for segmentation. And so I love what they did here. They even called it out. They're like, this is going to be easy for you. You can update your practice area with 2 clicks. Just let us know. Tell us what this is important to us. Tell us what your primary area of practice is. And so they had these, and then they had these other categories here. And then, a personal touch here, it's from their membership director, right? So this is just very simple. It's not overwhelming. It's not, hey, the instruction is 5 steps, go into your member profile and let's find this information, and let's go find the place in the member profile where this goes and then go update it. People just don't do it. Some might, but there's really no incentive. But when it's easy like this, you can do it. So I'm going to show you what they did here. they had a 27% response rate. Like that's equivalent to, say, a click through, if it's even accurate with bots on, typical delivery mechanisms have some bot clicks on there. This is actually this is how many people responded and updated. I guarantee you nobody's ever had a 27% update of a member profile item if they asked them to log into their member profile on the website. So I loved seeing this. This was also really interesting to me. So I think the assumption here from the Tennessee Bar Association is probably that most of the members would fall into one of these categories, right? These are the ones we know, these are the ones we think that most of our members will, but they added this, my primary area isn't listed, show me more options. 31% said that. So now I'm super curious, what other areas of practice, maybe we're not thinking about these other areas of practice and we need to be serving them in a more specific way. And then I wanted to show you here, and this, by the way, this is in the PropFuel platform that this question went out. And the workflow here on the back, the action on it was, for example, if my primary isn't listed, show me more options. We redirected them to another question. So they say, okay, what's fill it in for us. Tell us how you're practicing. And then Member Central, their AMS, they updated this member profile directly. So directly from the email, they just were able to, the member was able to click on the email, and then it was one click if it was correct. And they just said, oh, thanks for letting us know that this is accurate. And if not, it was 2 clicks. So super, super easy. And yes, this is just one piece of data, but you can start to think about all the ways in which you could do this, map it back to your AMS or to your marketing automation system to drop them into a campaign. There are so many options with this technique that make it just so much user-friendly. And it's really, again, the end goal is here to improve the engagement. Job titles, here's another one. So this is great for segmentation insights, just like the practice setting one. 32% response rate on this. I mean, I was pretty jaw dropped when I saw this. This is impressive to say, okay, 32% of our members responded to this question to give us accurate job titles. Amazing. And then again, they use Nimble here. So they updated the job title in Nimble if it was incorrect or out of date. So I love this example. Renewal timing. So I wanted to put this in here because AAMFT has this great campaign where they ask, do you intend to renew? And so just from asking the question, are you going to renew your membership? They started to see the trend in when people renewed start to back up. So in fiscal year 2022, you only had 5.61% renew after 3 to 6 months. Whereas, you can see going back in the years, it was much more significant. So it's almost like the asking of the question and finding out more information actually ended up, it was beneficial to get people to act just by asking the question, because then you can do things like, okay, if these people plan to renew this group over here, then we're just going to put them into a campaign to remind them. But those who say they aren't going to renew, that's really important information, because now you know who to get on the phone with. If somebody tells you that they're going to renew, you don't need to call them. But if they aren't going to renew, those are the people that it's fire alarm or whatever that's called. Those are the people to call. So it's really a staff resource saving mechanism as well, because you're not spending time on calling people and doing things that you don't need to do. Volunteer interest. This is another one. ASAE uses this campaign. They have this year-long general member engagement campaign that they do. So if you're an ASAE member, once every month or so, you might get a communication from them that asks the question. And the question here is, are you interested in volunteering? This is incredibly important to know who wants to volunteer, because then when you have a need for volunteers, you know who to talk to, right? So this is the perfect example of segmentation here, or the ability to segment that you didn't have before, because yes, and maybe what do you have in mind? This is great. Yes, okay, great. We're going to put them on the list. This group, maybe tell them more. And no way, okay, let's leave them alone, right? Like, let's not communicate to them about volunteer opportunities as much as we can, or at least for a period of time, because we know that they're not interested in doing it, and we don't want to overwhelm them, because you get, and that's the other thing is the overwhelm. The more you know about your members and the more you find out, the less you can bother them with the things that aren't relevant and that they don't want. And so it's another way of, instead of saying, okay, if you're interested in this, join this list, and segmenting that way, it's another way of saying, okay, if we ask the question and find out the answer, then we're going to take action on it and leave them alone. Resubscription. So this was an interesting one. ASM had a list of contacts, and I think on this, a lot of these members had opted out to something specific, but not everything. Or there was some reason they were like, okay, we're actually not sure if these people want to receive emails from us or not. And so they found out who did, and look how many people they added back to their list. That's so many more eyeballs than they used to have on their communications, just by asking the question. And again, 25% response rate on this. And the no, okay, that's fine. Half of them didn't want to. Great. Let's continue to leave them alone. So I'm curious, after these few examples here, what new member data will you collect first? What coming out of this, what do you think is most important for you when it comes to even this quarter? Think about this quarter. What do you have on your plate? Do you have a holiday campaign? Do you have an event coming up? Do you have a bunch of lapsed members that you don't know where they went? What do you think is most important for you to collect right now? And it could be just as simple as a secondary email address. MSTA, for example, they have a campaign that is intended to find out a second email address, because all of their student members have student .edu email addresses. And so they were able to go back and ask, what's the second email for you? What would you how do you want to be communicated with? Because then they can continue to deliver the information and to these student members who will be their future members, hopefully. So that's a great one. Any takers on that? Any new member data that you would like to collect? I'll give you a second here to think about it. Another one is, going back to the intent. I really think the intent is an important one, because that gives you so much more ability. And since some of this you want to write back to your AMS, and some you don't, right? So some of this is important for long-term use. And then sometimes it's kind of an acute case, and you'll want to include it just for a marketing campaign or something that's happening within the next couple of months. Jason, okay, win back 3 to 6 months, and renewal, yes, no, 3 months prior to expiration. Yes. So the win back is, that's a great question, because you can ask it in a way that says, why, are you aware that you even allowed your membership to lapse? Not just, do you want to rejoin? That's not the question, because that's just a straight call to action, right? The difference is you're finding out, did you even know in the first place? Because sometimes that's low-hanging fruit, and people just say, oh no, I didn't even know my membership lapsed, I'm going to go rejoin now. And that's the easiest money, right? Easiest revenue. And oh, okay, you're doing a PropFuel campaign on it. Awesome, Jason. so that's the first question is like, did you even know? And if you did know, like, do you want to still join? And if not, then why not? And again, that takes you down the path of finding out if there are some challenges with your value proposition, if there's something that happened that you didn't know about that needs your attention. And maybe that's an opportunity to have your ED or somebody else on the team contact them directly. So it's about getting that personal information and so that you can engage more directly. And often that comes down from, you can send some of those examples you saw, you can send out an email to 50,000 people and get down to a one-on-one interaction between the association and the member, which is really what we're going for when it comes to engagement. And asking questions and getting more data that's up to date and doing it easily is a great way to do it. And then, yes, prior to expiration, typically what I see that we do with member expiration is we say, okay, we're going to start 3 months prior to the ending of the membership expiration. And we're just going to start sending emails, and they're just going to be on a schedule. And we're going to say, hey, like, go rejoin. Your membership expires. Did you know this is a member benefit? So we start doing these general kind of informational one-way types of interactions, but we're not really actually like even finding out if they're seeing the value. A great question to ask 3 months prior to expiration, Jason, I don't know if you've built this out already, but a great question to ask is just, are you seeing the value? Like, if you ask them at the beginning of their membership, why did you join? Like, is this like, what's the number one reason you joined? And then 3 or 4 months prior to expiration, you say, hey, a couple months ago, you said this. Are you seeing this value? You're tying back what they said just to what's happening now. So that is a really great way to tie it back in. Okay, you said we're also doing a renewal campaign and learning if folks are staying, leaving industry, retiring in advance of expiration. Cool. Yeah, so that's that intent question. You're finding out more so that you can be prepared as a team and know what to do next and know what actions to take based on how people answer. I love that. Okay, so I'm going to put this here. This is just, I found this in our kind of like Slack archives actually, and I know it's long. You can read through it later. We'll send you the slide deck, but I wanted to include it because I think associations have a better grasp on like what that true value is when it comes to doing data collection this way. And so she just said, Chrissy from Texas CPA, she said they're using it to compile new data, weed out the bad data, and get a better understanding of wants and needs. That's really like the nutshell of it. And you can do it. I want to mention this too. Like PropFuel does this. And as you've seen, all the examples here today are great examples of doing it in PropFuel. But if there are ways to do this and just start to get around the mentality of asking questions instead of just telling members more things all the time. I remember one time one of our owners, Cameron, said, nobody ever deleted an email and didn't respond to an email from their mother. And it's true because, well, I mean, I guess it depends on the relationship, but overall, an email that you're receiving from your mother is very different from an email that you're receiving from, a retailer that you bought something from a month ago. And so I think that's, that's the difference there. And the more ways that you can think in that light of like, let's find out more, let's get curious, and then let's do something with what we find out. That's a way of approaching communications that I think is really just excellent for associations. And it helps, sometimes just asking the question, it's not even about the data and what you find out. That's the most important thing. Sometimes it's just the fact that you ask the question. Like, hey, they care, they're curious. Sometimes I get an email saying, hey, you visited our office recently. We're curious what you think. The mere fact that they're trying to find out more, and not in like a typical survey way always, but just curious about me as opposed to just sending me more things, that just makes a huge difference. It's a completely different way of communicating. So If you want to talk more about this, we'd love to talk with you. I know we have some clients on board, which actually for current PropFuel customers, we just launched a referral program today. So if you want to take a look at your email, you probably have an email from your CSM about that. And otherwise, if you're not a PropFuel client yet, we would love to talk to you. The conversational engagement approach truly is something that I recommend and I would use just almost 100% if I was on the association side still. It's just a different way of doing things that's easier than you can do it in other systems. You can do it, you can use this philosophy, but it's much easier and much more much less laborious doing it in a system like PropFuel. So it's also a way of reducing your email friction, reducing the number of broadcasts that you send. If that's a goal for you, if you hear all the time that members say, okay, we just get too many emails, what they're really saying to you is we're getting too many irrelevant emails, because there are people that I receive things from every single day and it's relevant to me and I open it. So it's really a matter of relevance, I think, when it comes to emails. And yes, ask, capture, act, Jason. That's right. That's the process. And if you do schedule a demo today, in the month of October, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're giving a $50 gift card to you just as a thank you to come have a conversation with us and just talk about what challenges you're having with engagement and just really planning into the next year. So that is all I have today. I made it short and sweet. And we have a little poll up here too, if you want to answer that. If you want to schedule a call, you can just click the yes or no. But that's all I have today. I made it short and sweet. I know this is a busy time of year for everyone trying to get things done before the end of the year. But I appreciate you tuning in today, and thank you so much. We'll send the recording afterward. And please, if you have any questions, you can reach me at Brianne@propfuel.com or find me on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect with you there too and continue the conversation. Have an awesome day, and we'll talk soon. Bye-bye.